Hi, Jordy. I can hear you. David is going to work. David's going to talk to you, Georgie. Jordy, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Do you hear me in English? Do you hear me in English? It's okay. Perfect.
Yes, we have you in English. Thank you. And I have you in Spanish. Thank you, Jordy.
We are going to go ahead and try to get everyone seated and get started. We do have a few folks who are still on their way, but we are going to try our best to keep our timeline, even though we are starting a couple minutes late. So with that, I'm going to call to order the Board of Supervisors for the County of Monterey 2026 Legislative Workshop. It is just after 10:30, about 10:45. Let the record show that all supervisors are present here in chambers. And if I may call on Senator Laird to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You can kick us off. All right. We do have Spanish interpretation services available at all of our board meetings, and I would like to ask for our Spanish interpretation announcement. Jordi, are you with us online?
Yes, I'm here online. Para todos los hispanoparlantes, servicios de interpretación están disponibles. Por favor, ir con la secretaria de la Junta de Supervisores para requerir un aparato. Gracias.
Thank you, Jordi. We appreciate the services that you provide and making our meetings available to so many more of our residents. Are there any additions or corrections to our agenda this morning? There are none. Okay, the clerk announced there are no additions or corrections this morning. So we're going to go ahead and start with introductions and a welcome. I want to appreciate everyone for making the time today to join us. We do have a number of legislators and staff who are with us, and we work closely and are really pleased of the opportunity to work closely between our state and federal delegations and the county. We also have a number of city managers, mayors, city council members, other electeds throughout the region who are joining us both in person and online, and we appreciate your time and participation today as well. I'm going to jump right in and pass the floor to Sonia De La Rosa, who is our County Administrative Officer, to keep us moving. Thanks. Or not. I know it's here. Data.
All right, sorry about that. My screen looks a little different this morning. So good morning, everybody. I'll make just a couple statements in terms of the work that's been done over the course of the last year. This is actually my 4th year with the County of Monterey, and unfortunately we are 4 for 4 declared emergencies. And one of the greatest things of being part of this county has been the responsiveness by all our legislators. In the time of need, there is no request too small. They always step up and assist us. So through our legislators and also their chiefs of staff and their staff, either district staff or at the whether it be Sacramento or Washington, D.C., we receive support immediately, and then we're able to act and safeguard the folks that are within our community. That would not be possible without all of you, so I just want to take a moment and say thank you. Our Department of Emergency Management is able to manage significant emergencies because of that support that we receive, and we have key individuals through our department heads involved in conversations related to H.R. 1 and impacts to our health care and our social services, as well as other services that we provide to community, including those individuals that may feel uncertain or afraid to come and work with government. We are actually able to host them and inform them of their rights, and also continue to let them know those services that they continue to be available and accessible to. So those that are joining us today include our Department of Health, our Department of Social Services, our Natividad Hospital, which is our public hospital. We do have the Water Resources Agency here, Public Works and Planning, and online we have a significant number of folks as well that support us in the work that we do. I do want to again thank Nicole Hollingsworth for joining the county and helping us navigate with Annette's departure. It's been seamless and it's been wonderful. And we have Maria here from our federal lobbyist. She is our contact and has been great through Ballard and Spa. Ballard the SMART. And then, of course, we have Karina that's also provides the background support. All of that work is done behind the scenes, but that's what makes it possible for us to successfully support the individuals and community and also hear where we can do better. I mean, we all are open to learning and being able to better serve, and the work continues in many of the areas that have been impacted by the, whether it be a storm, an incident, a fire, the work continues in each of those communities to ensure that we do better the next time and we're better prepared. So again, thank you, and passing it back over to the chair.
All right, fantastic. Also just acknowledge Ashley Walker from our state lobbyist, Nasamen, and Nick Chulos, who's our assistant CAO that sort of holds the whole team together on the county lobby team. I'm going to, in the sake of time, I'm going to move it right along to our legislative committee chair, Supervisor Alejo, who will provide some additional information. And we do have a few folks that do need to leave at 12, and then some that need to leave at 12:30. So I just wanted to keep us on our time check as much as possible. But thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone. And just to speak, there's a small button here by the microphone to be able to speak when it's your turn. And the speaker's staff said he should be here at 11:15, that he already had given notice that he was going to be a little late to this meeting. Well, good morning and buenos dias to everyone. Thank you for coming to our legislative committee. I want to thank our state and federal partners and the staff for joining us for this annual Monterey County Legislative Workshop. It means a lot for us, for you to be here with us today. We first began this workshop in about 2018 with the simple but important goal to ensure that Monterey County and our legislative partners are on the same page regarding the priorities that matter most to our residents, our businesses, and our communities. As the new year and the new legislative session begins, we recognize the critical importance of strategizing and collaborating together. Some of these priorities require immediate action, while others are more long-term efforts that will likely be addressed in phases over time. But by coming together in a setting like this, we can better align our efforts, identify opportunities and partnerships, and work effectively to secure the resources and policy support needed for our region. This past year has made the coordination even more important. We have seen high-end immigration enforcement actions that have created real concerns in many of our communities. At the same time, we are facing significant policy and funding changes that impact critical county services, including healthcare, social services, and homelessness programs that many of our residents depend on. Today's meeting is an opportunity for us to share information about Monterey County's priorities and funding needs, but equally important, it is an opportunity to hear from our state and federal partners about your priorities and how they relate to our county. We all recognize that none of us could do this work alone. Addressing the challenges facing our community requires collaboration between local governments, state leaders, and federal partners working together with a shared commitment to serving the public. So this morning, we will begin with a brief state of the county presentation from our CAO, Sonia De La Rosa. Following that, we will provide short presentations on our legislative priorities for the year. And we have worked to be strategic and focused, narrowing our priorities to just 3 key issues that we believe are most critical at this time. And after that, we'll hear from the members of the Board of Supervisors, and we look forward to also hearing from our state and federal legislative partners about their priorities that impact Monterey County. So thank you again for being here and for your continued partnership in serving the people of Monterey County, and for all the past accomplishments that you have realized on behalf of our county and the families and communities that we represent. And for that, we are forever grateful. So with that, I'll pass it, I guess, going to our CEO, Sonia De La Rosa. Thank you.
And I'll be brief. We are going to ask departments also to be, I know that we planned for 10 minutes. In order to stay on time, we'll probably be about 7 minutes. And my statements will be significantly less than that. So I think what's most important is, as county administrative officer, I work with every department that is part of the county, but also with partners that were within the county of Monterey and regionally, and at times statewide or nationwide as well, to ensure that we address matters collaboratively and remain up to date on directives as they're changing, whether it's from the federal level or the state level, and continue to support those individuals that are in the community, including our immigrants who are critical to our workforce as well. The priorities that we continue to focus on are housing and homelessness. We are, I believe, on the 6th draft of our housing element, and it has been submitted. It is critical for us to be able to have housing and community at different income levels, and most importantly, closer to the places that folks work. We have home key and encampment resolution grants that are active, and just recently celebrated the opening of Fairview here in Salinas, and we have other projects in South County that are also online or close to online. We continue to support Pájaro and the flood recovery. We did receive the $20 million from the state along with the community of Planada in Merced County, and there's been a great deal of back and forth between us and Merced County and how we're best able to support our population that was impacted with the floods from 2023, and continue to look at the dollars that are available through our CDBG program, which is the Community Block Grant Program that was specifically focused on disaster response. In terms of healthcare, again, we have our representatives that will cover the impacts that we're feeling, how we're preparing, but also ensuring that we are waiting for the state to work with us and response to some of these cuts, but also being very vigilant of the impacts that will happen within our community and how we could try to safeguard those services for those that we serve. For Moss Landing, we continue to work with community. There will be a presentation soon in the coming board meetings related to the status of that emergency and where we are in terms of the processes for the EPA and also our environmental health team. We continue to seek clean water for the community of San Lucas, and we've continued to receive additional dollars and are very grateful for the support from Representative Lofgren, who has supported us fiscally to try to advance that project. In terms of economics and infrastructure, Highway 1 is open. So, there's a couple things that we're doing, and through the work from our Public Works and Planning team, and also, Public Works and Facilities and Parks team, and also a partnership with Caltrans, we continue to respond to any of those areas that are impacted due to storms, due to slides, et cetera. And we ensure that our workforce is developed to align with industries that are emerging, and we seek digital equity and broadband throughout the entire county. In addition to that, we continue our move to a new financial system that has been a little cumbersome, but as a team, we have navigated to find a better way to support our employees and also for the budget planning processes. At this point, our largest goal is to support our county values, and in working to address some of the challenges of our immigrant population, we are opposed to certain issues that are unfortunately coming through at the federal level, and identifying different ways to support those individuals, including us, who live in this community and want to remain free of fear of going out into our community. And that's much of what our community addresses, whether you are from specific parts of the country or whether you've been here for generations. We're all being impacted by these items. In terms of education, we want to advance. We want to ensure our data is protected. We want to find ways to ensure the Department of Education is also receiving the funding that they need to support our children. And we want to ensure that equality remains at the forefront of all folks, and that we're able to have freedom of thought and expression, and also combat successfully misinformation. So we are steadfast in our support for our veterans and the defense of our communities, and we want to ensure that those individuals have a place to call home in our community and in our workplaces. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chair, and again, thank you all for joining us.
All right, I think we're going to go into our county priority presentations, and we're going to start with a project that's been ongoing for some time, but we're making good progress with our state legislators and our federal legislators focused on this issue of the San Lucas clean drinking water. And we have Randy Ishii, Director of our Public Works, Facilities, and Parks.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board, honorable federal and state officials. As introduced, I'm Randall Ishii, the Director of Public Works, Facilities, and Parks for Monterey County. This item that we're bringing before you, the first one, is the San Lucas Clean Drinking Water Project. This is one that we, the county, continue to carry forward for the small disadvantaged farming community in unincorporated Monterey County, located approximately 8 miles south of the city of King, also known as King City. This community has suffered with water insecurity for nearly 20 years, and there have been no drinking water orders issued over the course of that period of time. But thanks to the efforts collaboratively done with the San Lucas County Water District, the county itself, as well as yourselves, the state and federal officials, there has been some progress that's been made for that community. The county and the water district are continuing to work with the State Water Resource Control Board to identify these potential solutions to address these water quality issues. One of the further developments is that in the past, the county has brought forward the concept of a new dedicated pipeline system connecting the water system from San Lucas to the King City water system. That has now evolved into a new alternative whereby a new well and on-site water treatment would be provided, among other features. In federal fiscal year 24, the county was very fortunate to receive $1 million in terms of the preliminary design and environmental review scope of the project. And additionally, in this current fiscal year, the county has received another federal earmark to the tune of approximately $1 million, as well as approximately $4 million of state funding, all of which the county is greatly appreciative of. This is starting to move the project forward in terms of its design, but there's still a ways to go with the project. Additional funding is still needed for the overall project design, environmental assessment, engineering, and construction work to provide a clean, long-term, reliable source of drinking water to meet the community's current and future needs. And without these needs being met, the people will continue to be on bottled water, and it's also curtailing the efforts of an affordable housing project that is proposed in the community. Thus, the request is to support legislation and budget proposals that create new or expands existing sources of funding for a long-term project that provides a reliable source of clean drinking water to the small disadvantaged community of San Lucas. With that, we'll go on to the next slide, to our next need. And this is a newer one. This is called the Scenic Road Protection Structure. Scenic Road lies along the Carmel Point on the westerly side of Monterey County. And as the name implies, driving upon the road provides these scenic views of the Pacific Ocean. But not only that, the Scenic Road is the road that serves multiple residences and is also a road that leads to the state park's Carmel River State Beach, which is visited by many people throughout the year. And the project proposes a protective structure that would protect approximately 1,040 lineal feet of the road of the Scenic Road bluff immediately adjacent to the beach, as well as the Carmel River State Beach parking lot. And with the system as proposed, it is to be a low-profile coastal protection structure designed to blend in with that natural bluff. And for most of the days of the year, it would be covered with sand so that visually one could not tell that there is a protective system underneath that sand protecting the bluff, the homes, the road, and all the critical infrastructure in that road, as well as the protective system for the Carmel River State Beach parking lot. This is not simply a wall, though. Far from it. This is also a multi-hazard mitigation project whereby the scenic road protective structure would not impede the formation of a more natural flow of the Carmel River itself out to the ocean. To give it some context, the Carmel River, developed in the Carmel River watershed, flows westerly down west to the Carmel River Lagoon, immediately nearby the Carmel River State Beach, and then flows out to the Pacific Ocean. Every year, public works crews must mobilize, and through the course of acquiring permits from various state and federal agencies, constructs a pilot channel which allows the water level to build in the lagoon and allows endangered species such as the steelhead to grow, mature, and then be able to survive a saltwater environment when the river then accesses the pilot channel and goes out to the ocean. This is all necessary not only to protect the environmentally sensitive species, but it's also to protect homes immediately nearby the Carmel River Lagoon. Thus, with having this wall system in place, it would be in conformance with a memorandum of understanding that the county entered into with various regulatory agencies, both federal and state, and it would allow a more natural, gradual formation of the lagoon to then flow out to the ocean in a more northerly pattern and would significantly curtail, if not eliminate, in most cases, the need for public works crews to artificially assist the natural way that the river flows out to the ocean and thereby protect the nearby homes. Thus, the request is to support legislation and budget proposals that create new or expands the existing sources of funding for this long-term project that provides for this crucial structure for scenic road and this part of unincorporated Carmel by the Sea. Now, as we go on to the next slide, this slide discusses the general condition of our county's road infrastructure. To provide some context, the county has 1,263 plus minus miles of county maintained roads, 175 bridges, and approximately $500 million of road appurtenances, which include traffic signals, signage, striping. Thus, that infrastructure long-term deferred maintenance is north of $1.5 billion with a B. And to give it further context, if you took all of our county roads and stretched them end on end with each other, that would get you 1/3 of the way across the United States in the east-west direction. That is how much the county maintains and provides for its public. The map exhibit you see on the right-hand side of the slide shows the pavement condition index, or generally the health of the county's roads, with our last survey done in 2022. In the interest of time, generally speaking, in terms of color gradations, red is our worst conditions, blue is our best conditions. And as time has progressed, in terms of use of the gas tax that the county has for funding, as well as the maintenance effort funds that the county provides through its transient occupancy tax, aka hotel tax, and with the Measure X sales tax measure through TAMC, the county has made progress on improving the conditions of its roads. Recently, with the advent of the most recent general sales tax measure of Measure AA, further progress is being done thanks to the county's Board of Supervisors. However, there is still a long ways that we need to go, and there's projects in particular that are very large-scale projects that represent a subset of our many needs, which we'll go over in our next slide. Again, in the interest of time, staff will not read each of these, but this highlights the subset of those that could use federal and state support. Again, a subset of the many needs of which we have. So working from the north to the south, there is a corridor known as the G12 corridor itself, consisting of multiple roads in the North County, which connect State Route 1 to US 101. A safety study was conducted by the Transportation Agency for Monterey County in 2018 and 2019 and recommended various safety projects. To date, the county has conducted a portion of the north of $55 million of safety projects identified in that safety study. However, $44.3 million in 2018 dollars remains, and so county is seeking a part of one of those projects to the tune of approximately $1 million. Going to the south, there's an unincorporated community just west of the city of Salinas called Baranda, and in Baranda, there are many road and infrastructure needs. One of those that have been on staff's list is a reconstruction of the main road called Baranda Road, as well as sidewalks that could be constructed for that community to connect them for walkability to nearby services and marketplaces. Typically, that'd be something funded by the Community Development Block Grant, aka CDBG, and a project contemplating both road improvements and those sidewalk improvements consists of approximately $2.4 million. Moving further to the south, along the Big Sur coastline, there is a road called Palo Colorado Road, and this is one that has existed in a state of damage since 2017. It's approximately 8 miles long, which serves as the only access road from the scenic Big Sur coastline using State Route 1 as its main access point, and proceeds westerly, as it was, easterly to the Los Padres National Forest in the Santa Lucia mountain range. And this serves as the only access to not only several residences, but a state park known as Botcher's Gap and the former Boy Scout camp known as Pico Blanco. This road was fire damaged during the 2016 Sobranas fire and it's further exacerbated damages during the 2017 winter storms. And in short, while there is a small portion of FEMA funding that was granted for the project, the total project cost is $17.25 million. And so the county is looking for assistance to fill that funding gap in order to conduct that long-term repair project. Moving further down the south on the Big Sur coastline, there's another crucial road called the Nacimiento-Ferguson Road. It's approximately 14 miles long, and what's important is that this is the only east-west connecting road along this side of the coastline that connects State Route 1 to US 101. A motorist must travel north to Carmel Valley Road to get to the next east-west connecting road, or must drive all the way south into San Luis Obispo County to use State Route 46 to get east-west connecting State Route 1 back to US 101 and back to any services. This is a U.S. Forest Service owned highway facility. It was damaged during the 2020 Dolan fire and further exacerbated damages during the 2021 storms. And while the Federal Highway Administration was fortunate receiving funding to do immediate storm damage repair, the road itself still needs funding for rehabilitation of the road. And thus, the county asked for consideration to the tune of approximately $15 million to be funded to the U.S. Forest Service for their forest highway, which the county maintains, but the U.S. Forest Service owns. And wrapping things up, we have a crucial road also in the South County called Jalón Road. It's approximately a 40-mile-long loop road connecting on one side of US 1 down to the south to US 101 as well. However, it serves as a main access point for Garrison Fort Hunter Liggett. There are many branches of the service that use this road to access for its field training exercises, or FTXs. And for the last 4 years, the county has applied for a Defense Community Infrastructure, or DCIP grant, for 8.7 miles of Jalón Road. Unfortunately, we have not won the DCIP grant in any of those 4 iterations, but we're going to keep trying. The total project cost is approximately $12 million, and the county has been asking for approximately $9.8 million of DCIP grant funds. So in totalizing all of those requests, on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see a table. The county is requesting somewhere along approximately $45 million of assistance for this subset of projects that are crucial and represent a small portion of the entire suite of needs for road improvements and road deeds here in the county. This concludes the Public Works, Facilities, and Parks presentation. We hand the floor to the General Manager of the Water Resources Agency. Staff will be able for questions after this, and we thank you very much for your consideration of these requests.
Thank you, Director Ishii. And then now we'll have Aura Asdarian, General Manager of the Monterey County Water Resources Agency, to talk about the Nacimiento San Antonio Dams and Reservoir Safety Projects and the Reclamation Ditch Restoration Project.
Good morning, Supervisors, Senator Laird, Speaker Rivas, and honorable guests. Aura Asdarian, General Manager, Water Resources Agency. Starting with, I think, what most people understand, but it's the importance of the Nacimiento and San Antonio dams and reservoirs not only to the county of Monterey, but to the state and to the nation as a whole. These dams were constructed 60 and 70 years ago, and they create substantial opportunity not only for the residents of the county of Monterey and beyond in terms of the economic activity that they generate, the flood protection that they provide, the groundwater recharge benefits that help support the 250,000 people living in the Salinas Valley and our $12 billion agricultural industry, but also in the production of the healthy, affordable, and safe fruits and vegetables that are so important to the people of the state and the nation well beyond our borders. The dams have, for some time now, been looking for financial support for dam safety improvements and projects. And our current estimates are, that the totality of those projects near $200 million. One thing to put into perspective is that when these projects were first identified in the early 2020s and costs were assigned to them, we've continued to monitor the escalation of costs as we've moved forward. And for perspective, the costs have been escalating in the past several years at about $1 million a month. And so there's a long history of inaction here, but inaction has cost as well. And so it's just important to recognize that. In the last couple of years, we've been very fortunate to receive state funding with great support from Senator Laird and Speaker Rivas' office, and currently a lot of work that is occurring under those $22 million worth of grants that we've received. Next slide, please. So turning our attention to San Antonio, the biggest project that we have in front of us is the spillway replacement. The spillway is exactly the same as it was the day before the Oroville spillway collapsed. And so what we see here is not a change in the spillway itself, but rather a change in the standards of spillway design that have been reviewed and modified as a result of that by the California Department of Water Resources Division of Safety of Dams. And so we've been undertaking design work on the spillway. We do have tentative approval from DSOD on our preferred alternative. We have updated our probable maximum flood calculations to look at more recent hydrology, and the design and the permitting work continues, and we expect that to continue over the next 2 to 3 years. That work is being grant funded. What comes after is, a question that is important for us to consider. The current deadline for the replacement of the spillway by DSOD is December of 2031. The agency continues to work with the county, our state representatives, to secure additional state funding. We look forward to Prop 4 funds being made available. We also look forward to expanded federal support for this important project. What we are asking for this particular year in terms of our federal requests is for approximately $6 million to help support rehabilitation of the San Antonio low-level outlet works. When we move into the phase of the project that includes the spillway replacement, this will be the only facility that allows us to control water level in San Antonio Dam or reservoir, and so it will be important that it is in optimal condition. And so we have, as we've done with all of the projects relating to the Nacimiento and San Antonio safety projects, there are sub-projects, and so we can take these as subtasks, and there are orders of operations that are important to be aware of, but we have been able to break these projects up to make them more fiscally manageable as well as temporally. Next slide, please. And then returning back to Nacimiento, the priority project at Nacimiento is the plunge pool rehabilitation. After the storms of 2023, there was significant erosion that occurred in the plunge pool. If you're looking at the picture, it's kind of that round spot in the lower left-hand corner. There's a rock outcrop that sits in the middle of that plunge pool. You can see it there, and it creates eddies, and those eddies create erosion, and that erosion has the potential to cut back into and towards the foot of the dam, which, as you can imagine, would be highly undesirable for everyone living downstream. So that is why that's a priority project. We completed the geotechnical work there last year. Again, this work continues to be supported by state grant funds. And we do continue to pursue state and federal funding opportunities here as they present. And so that concludes my portion on the dam safety projects. Happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I think I'm moving it towards human resources.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yep. Appreciate that. Now we're going to call up several of our staff to talk about the impacts of HR1 on Monterey County Healthcare and Social Services. We have Elsa Jimenez, our Health Department Director, then Roderick Franks, the Director of Department of Social Services, and then Dr. Chad Harris, CEO of Natividad Hospital.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. We can go to the next slide. So I'll just highlight two public health programs that have been eliminated as part of recent federal policy changes. The first one is our CalFresh Healthy Living program. We were receiving an annual amount of about $600,000 that really helped us to engage our community through outreach and education, work with our schools on policies that were in place that were not conducive to encouraging healthy eating, physical activity, and really working them to turn around. In the most recent years, we also worked with our county parks department to create a parks prescription program with our providers in the community. And then, of course, we take advantage of all the wonderful farmers market in our county and provide education there. So we no longer have access to those grant dollars, which is very unfortunate because our recent community health needs assessment that was just conducted in 2025, nutrition, physical activity, and weight was the third area of opportunity for our county. Having said that, we do have some rollover funds that we're able to continue programming in this year, and we were able to find a smaller scale of dollars for next fiscal year, so we will continue some level of programming in this area, as this is a critical area for our community. The second one is our teen pregnancy prevention program. This eliminates all of our in-school-based programming, working with our youth to serve as peer mentors, to really encourage our youth that if they're going to practice, that they do it in a safe manner to prevent teen births, as well as the transmission of sexually transmitted infections, and really focusing on our most disadvantaged community. Just to give you a perspective, in 2014, we had a birth rate of 37 per 1,000 15 to 19-year-old persons, and over the last decade, we've been able to bring that down to 20 per 1,000 15 to 19-year-olds. So this is, again, a priority for the health department and the county, and we'll continue to do what we can in the absence of federal funding. And next, I'll hand it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Elsa. Chair, supervisors, and honored guests, Roderick Franks, the Director of Social Services here at the County of Monterey. I have a number of slides that are outlining the impacts of H.R. 1 on our operations, specifically in our determination of eligibility for two significant benefit programs that we provide, the CalFresh and Medi-Cal benefit programs. You can see here on this slide that the timeline for the implementation of the impacts for H.R. 1 are not a one-time event. They occur over multiple years going through 2028. Next slide, please. So we've already begun to experience some of the impacts of H.R. 1 locally. The asset level increase, the Medi-Cal expansion, additional citizenship requirements, which are changing who is actually eligible for CalFresh, and also the work requirements associated with CalFresh for able-bodied adults without dependents. However, we're lucky here in the County of Monterey that we have been granted a waiver for implementation of what we call the ABOD exemption for work requirements because of our unemployment rate. However, that exemption ends this coming January. Next slide, please. So you can see they continue through 2028, the impacts that are coming. I would like to bring your attention to the slide indicating October 2028. One of the things that is new as a part of H.R. 1 and could have significant impact on the overall statewide implementation of our CalFresh benefits is the payment error rate. If the state has a payment error rate regarding CalFresh that is greater than 10% of the national average, the state will be required to fund up to 15% of the total benefits administered in the state. And just to give you some information, that equates in the state of California to about $2 billion annually in benefits. And so we are working very hard to make sure that here locally and with my statewide county partners to bring that error rate as low as possible and try to get it below that 6%. However, that is a very difficult task considering that we are in the process of engaging and implementing many additional requirements that we've never had to implement before. Our staff are not trained to do them. We're in the process of doing that. And so the possibility for increased errors in this area remains to be quite high. And the effort to actually work with our staff to bring that error rate down and maintain it at a low level is a very significant staff-related effort. Next slide, please. So just a few things before we move on to the community impacts of what eligibility determination means in the community. I'd just like to go over that one of the work requirement expansions are for those persons who were part of the Affordable Care Act expansion 20 years ago. Those that have incomes up to 138% of the poverty level. Here in the county of Monterey, that equates to about 51,000 persons. We're estimating that through our use of technology, we'll be able to exempt or determine successful work requirement participation for about 50% of that group. Of the remaining 50%, about 25,000 persons here in the county of Monterey, we will have to hand determine whether they have an exemption or are eligible through the work requirements. The state of California has done some studying with other states that have engaged work requirements, and it's their experience that about 50% of that population will lose their enrollment into the Medi-Cal program. And so for us, that equates to about 13,000 to 15,000 persons who are currently enrolled as a direct impact of H.R. 1 are likely to lose their eligibility. And that's just one of the community impacts that could have a great impact on our provision of healthcare services in the county. And to talk about that, I will turn it now over to Dr. Chad Harris, our CEO of Natividad Hospital.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Roderick, and working very closely with my colleagues Elsa and Roderick here ultimately to wrap around our residents here in Monterey County. H.R. 1 has a profound impact, and just as a reminder, Natividad is the original public hospital in the state of California. Founded initially a version of us in 1844, prior to even us as a state. And as a reminder, Natividad has been here on our site for 140 years. And I think I can represent the leadership in Monterey County in saying we plan to be here for another 140 years, supporting our mission and our community. These impacts are significant. And I think this timeline gives a general overview. This is not all things, but many that ultimately impact the public hospitals, including Natividad, here in our state. First, I think folks realize that H.R. 1 passed on July 4th in 2025. I want to say thank you to our federal leadership with Congresswoman Lofgren and Congressman Panetta in support of the disproportionate share hospital extension that occurred ultimately in January. If that had not been extended, and it was extended through September 2027, that would have been over an $800 million impact on the California publics, and that translates to $14 million for Natividad alone. So first, let's start with a thank you. But these other profound impacts that my colleagues have alluded to, the shift in the roles in Medi-Cal with our colleagues at Central Coast Alliance for Health, it will approximate a reduction in 27% through calendar year 2028. These are the folks that are coming to Natividad as well as other providers. That's going to have a profound impact on how folks are cared for. We're focusing on the financials, but this also is going to lead to poor outcomes for these individuals, ultimately for the families that support them, and then us more broadly as a community in that support for those individuals. Taking your eye to the center there, one of the beyond eligibility, the federal match that occurs from the federal government, without getting into the specifics of the financing, is roughly a $300 million reduction across the public hospitals. That would be up to a $7 million reduction per year that's going to start in October 2026. And that is clearly imminent. Another core area that I want folks to focus in on are the state-directed payments. These are state-directed payments, and for the state of California, dollars that are associated with Medi-Cal for the work that we as public hospitals do. We are talking $2.3 billion across all the publics from 2028 through 2032, if this all bears unfortunate fruit in this case. What does that translate to Natividad Medical Center and the work that we do? $76 million over those 5 years. Profound. And these are just two of the core areas that I wanted to draw the eye to. Noting the services we provide, for example, we were called out by, awarded by America's Essential Hospitals, which represents all United States public hospitals in this country, for our quality and our closing, not reduction, of the gap on perinatal outcomes around anemia. For Latina moms, and more specifically Indigenous-speaking, Mixteco-speaking moms. This is because of who we are, the mission that we serve, and how we harness our funding in order to serve our community. So we appreciate the support that's occurred to date, and we look to you for ongoing support as we continue our mission into the next 140 years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harris. And you rightly said, Natividad is the oldest public hospital in the state of California. And could we give them a round of applause to all our department heads for their presentations? Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take things out of order a bit, only because we have a time limitation with Assemblymember Dawn Addis. She is on Zoom. So Assemblymember Addis, we'll go to you, and then we'll go back to our agenda.
Let's see. Are you able to hear me? There we go. Thank you so much to the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. It's wonderful to see each of you via Zoom. I know that our collective delegation is working hard on behalf of our shared constituents there in Monterey County. And want to say it was wonderful to see Supervisor Alejo this week in our office advocating on behalf of CSAC and on behalf of Monterey County and all of the needs that we jointly have. As you know, I represent coastal Monterey County. I have the 8th largest geographic district in the state assembly. And so I want to say thank you for having me on Zoom today, as I am in the southern part of the district, touring both Cal Poly and their new tech park and many of the innovative businesses that they're incubating there, as well as going to the SLO County Elections Office. And I think I saw Senator Laird sitting there. He led a bill that I supported in the past couple of years to really improve elections in San Luis Obispo County. So that's why I'm not with you there in person, but I appreciate the opportunity and certainly didn't want to miss time with all of you today. I'll start by saying that we all know that this year has presented unimaginable hardship for too many in our communities, and your staff just detailed those, and Natividad Hospital just detailed many of those in their presentation on what I will call the attacks of HR1, and I'll address a little bit of that through my role as chair of the Health Budget Subcommittee on the Assembly side. But, you know, the speaker had a legislative day last week in the Capitol, and I had the honor of presenting there to local electeds and government officials. And what I wanted to convey there, and I'll convey right now at the top, is that I really believe in these incredibly tough times that local officials are vital in the fight for our community well-being, and that when we struggle at a national level, we're fighting hard at a state level, but it's the local level that's providing the direct services. And I want to appreciate all of you for that, and thank you again for your partnership. There's three things really that I'd like to highlight that our office has been working on this year that I think are pertinent in the face of what is happening nationally and how the county is going to be navigating that. One is the way that we're working on behalf of immigrant communities that are part of the fabric of Monterey County, not just in the workforce and in the service industry, but also as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as community leaders, as elected officials. we know that the immigrant community is incredibly important. And so our office is doing work in that area that I'll tell you a little bit about. I also want to talk about, as I mentioned, how I'm trying to work through the healthcare crises through the chairship that I have that the speaker has allowed me to stay on for the budget sub 1 on health. And then a couple of policy things that I have going that are around bolstering democracy during tough times. So first and foremost, many of you were able to celebrate with us when we were able to allot $1.5 million to Catholic Charities on the Central Coast. And this is money that is specific to Monterey, San Luis Obispo, Santa Cruz, and San Benito counties. We had put money towards immigrant legal defense in the budget last year, but I had the suspicion that it would be very challenging for our communities to draw down that money. So we worked all year, 9 or 10 months, and we're able to bring this $1.5 million into the community for the specific purpose of immigrant legal defense. And I know that Catholic Charities is a trusted source doing that work right now in Monterey County. The second thing that we are working on is there's an entire package of bills moving through the state assembly right now to address egregious, deeply harmful, and often illegal actions by ICE agents that have resulted in the deaths of innocent people and also the cruel and often illegal detainment of too many others. So a bill that I am carrying, AB 2393, it's an author-driven bill to allow a private right of action for false imprisonment or excessive force by ICE agents. I'm also a co-author on another bill that would prevent car rental companies from renting to ICE agents. And that comes out of a situation in Southern California where ICE agents rented like a box truck, went to a place that there was a lot of day workers, told those day workers they wanted to hire them. And then when they opened the doors to that truck, there were ICE agents, and it caused massive upheaval. So we're doing, and there's many other bills in the Assembly as well as in the Senate that are addressing this issue. So want to let our community here know that we are working hard. I've had a lot of questions about what is California doing to stand up for the immigrant communities here. So those are a couple of pieces. I'll move now to the healthcare crisis. As I mentioned, I'm grateful to Speaker Rivas, who continues to have me serve as the budget subcommittee chair just for the health portion of the budget, but also for naming healthcare as one of his top priorities this year, which has really put the Assembly in a position of leadership when it comes to addressing HR 1 challenges. And I would say everyone in this room knows that healthcare is already too expensive. Monterey County has some of the most expensive hospitals in the state, if not the nation. And we also know that primary care doctors are already too hard to find. So then we add to this the HR 1 cuts that you just heard from your staff about, as well as the Affordable Care Act federal subsidy lapses that are going to create increased premiums for covered California. So to address that, as you know, we have the Office of Healthcare Affordability that has been working diligently to reduce hospital costs. They continue to have funding in this year's budget, which is very important. OCA is what they're called or known as, and they're working on driving down hospital costs, but also addressing the cost of pharmaceuticals, and have now released both naloxone and insulin to market at much, much less of a cost. A second thing we have done on affordability that I would say crosses over with healthcare is put money into our diaper banks. We know that 1 in 3 families struggle to afford diapers, and having a child or a baby, and sometimes adults who do necessitate diapers, we know that that adds to hygiene and being clean and being healthier. And so we've put money into the budget, and I supported last year and support again this year to make sure that Californians have access to diapers when they need them. We will also, last year, we also held a series of hearings at just about every health subcommittee hearing that I chaired. We talked about the pending impacts of H.R. 1. We didn't yet know what would be in that bill. We do now. So we held dozens of hearings last year. One of the things we did, because we were nervous about the ACA subsidies, was put $190 million into premium subsidies for the ACA for the most economically disadvantaged people who have covered California to try to help soften this premium increase that's coming. And this year, we'll hold a number of hearings again, questioning the administration around, the governor's administration around their proposals in response to H.R. 1. And our first hearing covered physician access. We have upcoming hearings that will cover many of the issues you just heard from your staff, including an overview of the Medi-Cal budget, Prop 56 investments, the MCO tax, investments to protect reproductive health services, gender affirming care, and so much more. So we look forward to hearing from you. I know I mentioned I saw Supervisor Alejo earlier this week, but I encourage you to keep reaching out in terms of what you are facing. We have a number of other policy pieces to ease auto enrollment for covered California, to ensure non-discrimination protections stay in place for LGBT community as well as other protected classes. And then moving off of healthcare, I just want to mention briefly about democracy and how we are trying to work on democracy and strengthening our democracy both at the local level and at the national level. So I have a bill, there's a separate one in the Senate, that would make it illegal to put someone on the ballot who does not qualify under the Constitution. And this is really to prevent a third term from this president, knowing the destruction that we've had so far, but also that this president is already selling merchandise for a third term, 2028 merchandise. And so we want to make sure that folks on the ballot are constitutionally eligible to be on the ballot. And then at the local level, we started hearing about cases where people, particularly women, were being penalized for having absences related to childbirth, and in some cases having to make a case to not get kicked off their city council because they had missed a certain number of meetings, but it was due to pregnancy or childbirth. So I have a bill to address that situation because we believe democracy is stronger when all genders are able to serve and not penalized. Nobody should be penalized for becoming a parent. We want parents to be able to serve in office. So I want to say thank you to all of you again, and say that we are here for you. I've shared with many of you that we have our Central Coast Caucus that's very active. I'm honored to co-chair that with Assemblymember Hart from Santa Barbara, but also want to say we're excited that Senator Laird has stepped into the vice chair position. We're putting our bill package and our bill priorities together now. We'll be able to share those with you soon. So Supervisor, thank you for letting me jump in early ahead. I have a 12 o'clock that I have to run to, but really appreciate the time with you.
Thank you very much for your partnership and your leadership, Assemblymember Addis. So thank you for joining us. We're going to adjust our schedule here because we know Senator Laird and Speaker Rivas are time constrained. So rather than jumping into supervisor comments, we're going to jump to them first. And I know Congressmember Panetta is online as well, so we'll kind of take this in order. Let's go to Assembly Speaker. This is comments from our state and federal legislators on their priorities that relate to our county. So we're going to go to Assembly Member or Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas, our 71st Speaker of the California State Assembly. Thank you. And then we'll go to Senator Laird.
Sounds good. And thank you, Supervisor Alejo, and the entire board. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with my colleagues. It was great to hear from Ms. Addis, and if there's one partner I have in the legislature that I've had, we've always worked incredibly well together, and we've accomplished a lot for the county and for this region. It's John Laird, and so now I get to work with him even that much closer as chair of Senate Budget Committee, and so to say that our region is well taken care of, we certainly are. And so my standard line these days when folks call me with any type of request, I say, well, have you talked to John Laird first? And you have to go to his office first. So always great to see you, John. But, certainly, appreciate all the work you all do as members of the board, certainly all of the departments. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and always value these conversations because strong state policy, it begins with listening, especially to the local leaders who are closest to the residents that we all serve. I come from local government as well. I was a county supervisor just down the road in San Benito. And in that small county of San Benito is where I learned to be an effective listener and a representative for our residents there. And so here in the county of Monterey, it's always been a place where that partnership between local government and our state, where it truly matters. And I want to say, how grateful I am for the collaboration we've built over the past year and certainly my time in the legislature and in the state assembly, because it's that partnership where we've been able to make real progress on projects that are improving the quality of life for residents across this county. You look at the work we've done in Pajaro, where we continue to strengthen flood protection, investing in long-term resilience for that community. You could talk about the partnership that we've built to improve drinking water infrastructure in San Lucas. Certainly work that was highlighted in the presentation and work that we still have a lot of progress to make. But it's these investments that are not only about infrastructure, but as we know, they're about public safety, it's about economic stability, and it's about restoring trust in communities that have been through so much and have historically not received much support from state and the federal government. And so with that, as we look ahead to this year, many of the priorities that are guiding our work in Sacramento align closely with the challenges that the County of Monterey is navigating. First and foremost is affordability. It's why our focus in the State Assembly and in our legislature remains absolutely clear. Lower costs where we can for families here in California, working to protect the safety net programs that families depend on, and also ensuring that federal actions do not undermine the services that Californians rely on here in Monterey County and across our state. Last year, on that front, our legislature will continue to protect the resources that belong to California's residents. And what I mean by that is, last year our legislature, we approved $25 million. It was a special session that the governor had called. It was a $25 million investment to strengthen California's legal defense efforts against federal actions that threaten funding for essential programs. And it was that action we took prior to Trump's swearing into the presidency for, Trump 2.0. We were criticized. I received death threats because of that proactive action we took. But let me remind you on the return on investment of that $25 million. The California Department of Justice has filed more than 50 lawsuits against this federal administration challenging attempts to freeze or withhold federal funding tied to child care, tied to food assistance, to health services, and to other critical programs. And these efforts have protected $188 billion in federal funding. $188 billion in federal funding for California's families, to our businesses, and local governments. It's a pretty good return on that investment. And that is, you have to remind everybody that this is funding that Californians have already paid into. We are a donor state here in California. Our tax dollars go to help fund programs all across this nation. And so when you have a president that is hell-bent on targeting California, then certainly myself, John Laird, Don Addis, we're going to do something about it. When it comes to the presentation that I heard from the county on the health care front, as was mentioned by Assemblywoman Addis, I as well want to acknowledge the concerns that many of you have raised about the potential federal actions that could impact health care services here in Monterey County. H.R. 1, certainly that change in federal law is going to be significant as far as impacts to residents and to services. as they affect Medicaid funding, the safety net programs that we all rely on here in the region. In a county like Monterey, where so many of our families rely on Medi-Cal and rural health providers, these impacts are incredibly serious. And so certainly just know that we are watching these developments closely in Sacramento. And protecting access to healthcare, especially in rural and agricultural regions, remains a top a priority for myself, and I know for our legislature. And I know John, I'm sure will hit on this, but when it comes to the state budget, I've got to be very candid, because it's going to shape our state budget this year is going to shape what we're able to do together this year and in future years. And so our state is entering a period of significant fiscal pressure, unlike we have seen over the past 10, 20 years. We have revenue volatility, economic uncertainty, rising program costs, and they're all creating these structural challenges, not just this year, but for several years ahead. And so simply put, the state budget is going to be tighter than it has been in recent years, and that means we must make careful, responsible decisions about how we allocate resources out of Sacramento. At a time when counties like Monterey are facing very real and serious challenges related to disaster recovery and flood protection, housing and homelessness, behavioral health services, public health, and threats to our hospital systems, and infrastructure needs in rural communities, those are real needs, and they matter. But in this environment, our work is going to require strong coordination between state and counties so that we can protect the programs that matter most, while managing the state's fiscal realities. And so my commitment, I know our commitment, myself and John and our delegation, is to approach this year's budget with honesty, with discipline, and in partnership with all of you. And so it's clear that we must protect critical safety net programs, as has been mentioned, especially those serving our most vulnerable residents. We must protect investments that strengthen local economies, and we must do it while keeping California on a sustainable fiscal path for the long term. I know John terms out in 2028, I term out in 2030. The last thing we want to do is leave the state in a worse situation than we are currently in. And so certainly that balance isn't going to be easy, but it is essential. Another a priority this year is improving accountability in state government. It's been a focus of mine since I became speaker some 3 years ago. One of the steps we've taken was reducing the number of bills each member can introduce, and that has had a significant impact on the flow of our work. It was recently reported that the number of legislative bills introduced this year is the lowest number over the last 20 years. And so certainly my goal, I know, in the Assembly was to encourage our members. The hardest part of my job is leading a caucus of 60 Democrats that are at each other's throats for any issue and reason. And so it's, what's best for Monterey, what's best for our region isn't what's best for Bakersfield, Los Angeles, or San Francisco. And so, it's a juggling act that we all have. But the focus is always to, remind my colleagues to focus on those issues and those problems that matter most to Californians, to ensure that we are proving to them that we take these issues seriously, but that we are making a meaningful difference in their lives, especially a state that is facing the nation's worst affordability crisis, housing crisis, homelessness crisis. We've got to do a much better job in unifying our collective efforts to make that much more of a difference. And one area that I'm really proud of is having recently launched a new outcomes and oversight review process in the Assembly, the first of its kind in the nation. Proud that the state of Oregon has now copied what we have done, because passing legislation should never be the finish line. It's always the starting point. And what ultimately matters is whether those laws that we pass actually deliver results for Californians. And so that's why conversations like this workshop are so valuable, because you all are on the front lines of policy implementation. You see where policies work, where they create unintended burdens. And so my goal is not simply to pass legislation. It's always been to ensure that state policy actually works. That works for counties, for local governments, and for people that you all serve every day. And if there are ways that we can improve implementation when it comes to bills that are passed through our legislature to adjust those policies, we certainly want to hear about it. And so obviously Monterey County plays an essential role in our state's economy, from agriculture, food production, to tourism and coastal economies, innovation, small businesses. This region certainly helps power California. And, you know, this is also a county that understands resilience, whether responding to floods, protecting groundwater, addressing housing shortages, or supporting farm worker communities. And certainly, I believe that we have an opportunity this year to deepen our partnership between state and Monterey County, and particularly around issues related to infrastructure, housing production, disaster resilience, and protecting the safety net programs that our families depend on. And so certainly my office is always here to partner. You know, thank you all for your leadership, for your service, and for the partnership that we share. So thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you very much, Speaker Rivas. And we want to recognize your leadership and how you got the hardest job in your house. And you do it very well and always staying connected with us and addressing our needs. So we appreciate that. We're going to jump to the other house, to the State Senate. And we're very honored to have our state senator be the chair of the very powerful Senate Budget Committee. So we're glad to have Senator John Laird. And, you know, he's time constrained too. So thank you. We'll pass the mic to you.
Thank you. And it is great to be in partnership with the Speaker. It is disorienting, the fact that he is a constituent and now he says, go talk to him about things. But it doesn't matter because we work so well together on different issues that I think it is a great relationship. And he does have a horrible job, and you should appreciate it, because I complain about a few rogue senators, and it is nothing compared to what he deals with. So I really appreciate the work. Let me get right into the issues, and some of the issues that were raised. I want to talk a little about the budget, a little about some legislation, but specific issues. And on San Lucas Water, I am actually Zooming with Cal Water later today, and I have met with the water board, and there was a little blip with a letter that went out. And the great thing is that Proposition 4, the climate bond, rewrote the maximums for projects like this, and it allows funding for the San Lucas project at a level that wasn't possible as late as a year ago, and will help us be able to get there. And now it is just dogging it all the way through, because there's so many different issues. There's the issue of the water quality sinking before we have a project there. There's the issue of possible consolidation with King City, with Cal Water. There's the issue of making sure the locals don't have to pay rates that are unsustainable. And we have to work through that, but we have a path now, and there hadn't been a path the last few years, and we're working on that. And it's good. And we do want to try to expedite some of the Proposition 4 funds. It was $10 billion. We appropriated $3 billion last year. This year we're doing over $2 billion, or the governor's recommended over $2 billion. I think we want to do a little more. And there is one particular pot that is for San Andreas corridor wildlife crossings that will go primarily to this region, San Luis Obispo, San Benito, Monterey, maybe a little bit of Santa Clara. And the first tranche of that is recommended to come out in the budget. And we had blowback in our own house last year over leadership sort of guiding a lot of money to their own districts. And so I already went to the most disgruntled senator and said, that was there beforehand. We're going to appropriate it this year. It has nothing to do with me being budget chair. We are going to get that out the door. And so it is, I have to grease the skids with a little extra stuff this year to make sure that happens. On the issue of the dams, we have worked together, and there is the state money, which is really close to a state share of the spillway project. But the governor did this thing where there was a small pot of dam safety money out of the last bond, and he swept it right as we were all helping Monterey apply for it. But there is a bigger pot in Prop 4. So we are hoping to make that line up. And the trouble is that Joe Lofgren has done a great job with the federal funding, and now that's a little uncertain. as I said at the Salinas thing this morning, I should allow Zoe Lofgren's staffer to speak for Zoe Lofgren. But in any event, we do have some sort of path there, and although the word inaction was used, there's not been inaction here. We are trying to get that project moving online despite all these things. Another thing to mention is that each house has passed a version of a housing bond, which might be the one bond that could go to the ballot this year. And it's suggested for $10 billion. And it is really to fund affordable housing, which when redevelopment went away and other things happened, sort of cut the ground out from under cities and counties in funding housing. My one concern, and I expressed this on my floor speech on the Senate floor, is that if you look at, for example, Salinas and the Salinas Valley, there are really financial struggles for communities doing additional water supply and additional wastewater treatment. And if we don't have some infrastructure money for disadvantaged communities, this housing bond becomes only about the wealthier communities in the state. And I have no idea if I can be successful in that, but I laid down that marker when it passed out of the Senate. And somebody came back to me and said, oh, it drops the polls. And I said, send me the bowl. So there was 1 point difference if you included infrastructure money. I think that's negligible. And I think it's something, I know at one point the governor was into. I hope that we can reinterest him in that. And it is so nice that Highway 1 is finally open all the way through Big Sur. And it is telling that Caltrans didn't want to have the celebration till May because they wanted to make sure it hadn't closed down again before they had the celebration that it had opened. But we do have that coming up, and it is great. And when Ara mentioned a housing project blocked by San Lucas, when I visited the San Lucas school a couple of months ago, the principal or superintendent just said, this is where that housing project will go. So I know that that's hanging in the balance, and that's what we're trying to do. That is exactly a visualization of the issue that's in front of us. If they don't have infrastructure for clean water, we will not have that affordable housing project. And so that's clear. Then to get onto the budget and to add to what Robert said, we're in this anomalous situation where when the governor released his budget on January 10th and he shut it down on some time like December 1st, we were in deficit this year for the coming budget year by about $3 billion. But in his budget, he had about $6 billion of shaky things. And so since he shut down the budget, the revenues, the next 2 months have been $6 billion increased revenues because of artificial intelligence. There's a question about whether that will continue to June. And while we could have a budget that has moved into balance, the next year is 17 to 35 billion out of whack. And so we're in this impossible political position, as everybody that testified will want us to move in and save lots of things, when we can't add to ongoing spending because of the out year. So the thing that we're going to have to do is figure out how to triage as best as possible. And as was said by Supervisor Alejo, when I met with the counties, they said the impact is roughly $6 billion to $9.5 billion. And a lot of it is ineligibility work, where the real goal is to help individuals stay on health care. And if they don't stay on health care, they're going to be coming to emergency rooms and other places, or allowing conditions to accelerate, which will be costs. And that's the challenge. We had a hearing on H.R. 1 and all its impacts at the Senate Budget Committee. And the real problem is I had one senator say, could you just give us a list of the federal cuts to California? Well, we can give you a clear list of the cuts to the state budget, but we have trouble wrapping our arms around everything else. I mean, I think Chad Harris mentioned the DISH funding, and So if some disadvantaged hospital funding that goes directly to hospitals, and then there's the QAF, another thing that wasn't renewed to hospitals, and that doesn't come through us. So we try to ascertain the hit on the hospitals around. I had a chart I presented to the Senate Democratic Caucus that looked like an octopus, because you could go straight to where the cuts were. Well, they could go to individuals, they could go to nonprofits, they could go to local governments, they could go to healthcare facilities, and then we have to try to measure to see if there's any way we can do anything. Right away, we did the restoration of Planned Parenthood clinics because that was the only cut in H.R. 1 that took effect immediately. All the rest were phased in. And there would have just been hundreds of thousands of people that would lose primary care if we didn't do that. And the governor figured out how to rearrange funds, so by the time it got to us, it was 90 million of the 330 million. But we did that. And that's a one-year cut. They have not extended it. We're hoping it goes away. We're hoping that's not a thing we have to do in future years. And then you get to what the directors were talking about in terms of health care, and particularly in terms of food assistance on the social services side. And last year, the Speaker and the Senate President worked very closely to get extra money to food banks to try to just know that if anybody falls through, we are backstopping the safety net of last resort. But now these cuts that are coming to SNAP are much more massive, and we're having to figure it out. And we do not have. I was speaking over at the Pajaro School District, and somebody said, how are you going to backfill all our federal cuts? And it's like, I'm not sure we can. And that was just an innocent question, just an assumption we were all going to take care of everything. And it's like, you have to be aware that might not happen in certain areas. So I saw the community college president here earlier. They have done reasonably well under Prop 98, 2.5% increase. Last year, the governor wanted to cut UCs and CSUs by 8%. We fought all the way back. The half funding is the homeless funding that is flexible, that allows us to do temporary shelter, and we want to not let the governor cut that, although that's in the mix. Hospitals are really challenged, and I've met with most of the hospitals in this region in the last few months, and we are going to have to do something. We know this because we can't let them sink. What we do, how we do, to the scale we do, is still problematic, and we will consider that. So, and then just very briefly, because I'm so busy with the budget, I've introduced a full legislative packet, and even though the Speaker gleefully took credit for limiting people to 35 bills, that's a pain in the ass for me, because I am a prolific author. You know, I have sent 74 bills to the governor in the last 5 years. He signed 73 of them. The one he vetoed so made me mad that I got him to sign it the next year. And so this year, I'm focusing more on trying to solve problems locally. So I have a bill about recreation in the Santa Margarita Lake to fix the tax issue with Diablo Canyon that PG&E got out of with the extension. Monterey Water District wants teeth in its enforcement of people that water non-functional turf. There's San Juan Bautista had a water project that was delayed, and they're getting all these fines, and they only have 1,800 people in a limited rate base. So I have a bill that allows small districts like that to apply the fines to the project. And there's a bill for the Pajaro Levee project too, because they want different options on public-private partnerships and things to do, and I've introduced a bill on their behalf. And then for cities and counties, court decisions screen them out of vehicle fees for heavy maintenance vehicles that provide public services, and I have a bill to try to restore that so there's not a cut in money to cities and counties. And then family winemakers really came and said, look, our small wineries can't sell at farmers markets. And so I have a bill to allow that to happen, which will hopefully help the struggling wine industry. And I have 47 co-authors on a resolution to oppose offshore oil drilling off the California coast. And we will be moving on that. And there's a coastal commissioner sitting at the other end here. And I have a resolution to honor the 50th anniversary of the Coastal Commission and the Coastal Conservancy. And despite what appears to be occasional lack of warmth from the legislature to the Coastal Commission, I have 29 of the 30 Senate Democrats are co-authoring that. So I think we want to do that. And I just look forward to continuing to work on all these issues. I hear from you all the time. Try to hook you up with state agencies. And the one last reminder on behalf of Robert as well as myself, which is please ask us to write letters of support for your grants to state agencies. It's always shocking to find out they've gone in and we have not been asked to communicate with the state agency on your behalf. So when you do that, make sure you come to us. Anyway, I know I went a couple of minutes over, and I apologize for having to leave, but I really appreciate the chance to present and appreciate our working relationship.
Senator Leonard, thank you for your leadership and always being accessible to us. I think to all 5 supervisors and our county staff, your team has been great as also. So we're going to go to Congressmember Jimmy Panetta, who's online. He's been waiting patiently. He represents the 19th district, so we'd love to hear from Congressman Panetta.
It looks like my camera and my microphone are working. Is it working there?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Alejo. Good to see you virtually. I haven't seen you in a while, but look forward to seeing all of you soon. Had the excellent opportunity to have a good sit down with Chair Askew on her visit to Washington, D.C. And as I'm sure she told you about, it wasn't just her, it was some of the young ladies that she so kindly and good-heartedly brought out to Washington, D.C. with her to get a taste of Congress, I guess I should say, and how things are working and how things are not working. So really give a lot of credit to Chair Askew in doing that. But also, obviously, an appreciation. And like I said, I like what John said. Absolutely. We definitely value the partnership that we have at all levels of government, not just in Monterey County, but really in the 19th Congressional District. It's kind of what we do around here. And so I want to thank the board for its involvement when it comes to working with me at the federal level on so many pertinent issues that unfortunately, as we've seen over the last year, have really affected the citizens of Monterey County, and unfortunately in a negative way, especially when it comes to healthcare. But as I've said, and as you have heard me say, the leadership these days is not coming from the top down. It really is coming from the ground up, and everything that you have done on the board, everything that the people of Monterey County have done in so many areas to ensure that our community remains strong, that the vulnerable in our community remain protected. It says a lot about this place that we call home. So thank you for that. Obviously, when it comes to Washington, D.C., which I just got in from late last night, it's all about Iran and the War Powers Resolution that we voted on yesterday. I know you are tracking this situation, despite it maybe not being a topic of discussion today. Obviously, it's a topic of discussion for our country and for our nation. And that I believe the way I kind of sum up this conflict is that this is the least debated, potentially prolonged war in our nation's history. Let me repeat that. The least debated, prolonged war in our nation's history. And that this is not just a failure of the president to come to Congress to get authorization. This is a failure of Speaker Johnson to demand accountability and authorization from this administration. Obviously, I don't have time to get into Article 1, Article 2, and even Article 3 when it comes to the courts. But when it comes to declaring a war, which we are in at this point based on the projected length of this conflict, Congress only has that authority. And so we are doing everything we can to ensure that we live up to that responsibility per Article 1 of that Constitution. That is why yesterday we voted on a war powers resolution to obtain authorization appropriately so that if there is any further conflict, it is not without congressional authorization. Now, unfortunately, that WPR, say it to save time, the WPR, that one failed. However, there are two others that I support that I think is necessary to support because we need more debate in Congress about these foreign conflicts, not less debate, as I believe this administration would rather have, considering how it's gone into not just this conflict with Iran, but actually attacked and invaded for an administration that campaigned on ending forever wars. This administration has attacked and invaded 7 countries 8 different times just within the last year. And so I believe that we need to continue to support any sort of war powers resolution, especially on this conflict with Iran, as much as possible so that we can have more debate and ultimately live up to our obligations under the Constitution. So that is where we are at and where we are going to go over these next few, I'd like to say days, but unfortunately it looks like next few weeks, considering the type of complex conflict that we are in with Iran, but also the lack of strategy that is being pronounced from this administration, an administration that finds it easy to get into these conflicts, although in an area like the Middle East, history teaches us it's hard to get out of these conflicts. So that is the topic there. Now, the vote yesterday completely overshadowed another vote that we took yesterday, having to deal with another issue that is important to us here in Monterey County, and that's immigration. I voted for the 3rd time not to fund the Department of Homeland Security yesterday because I am not willing to provide any more funding to DHS if they continue to allow the agents from CBP and ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Patrol, to continue to act in the reckless manner that this administration is unfortunately encouraging them to do. Obviously, we've seen what can happen when you have untrained, unprofessional and aggression and agents who are allowed to act with impunity based on some of the statements from this administration, the consequences of that. And I got to admit, and I think we all can see this, the only way we were able to see what happened is because people did what people need to continue to do and not be violent with police and not be violent with ICE agents, but simply have this, be armed with this, the cell phone, the camera, for what we saw with the unfortunate shootings of Renee Nicole Good, as well as Alex Preddy in the streets of Minneapolis. But because of those videos, because they were held accountable because of those videos, we saw some changes when it comes to Minneapolis, an area that had over 3,000 agents sent into it. Just to put it in perspective, the city of Minneapolis only has 400 police officers. So it tells you how many agents were in the streets at that time. Obviously, according to the administration, they pulled back on that strategy. And then we saw the firing of Secretary Noem yesterday. That being said, it's still not enough. We know it's still not enough, and that's exactly why I voted no yesterday for the 3rd time when it comes to funding DHS, because we are continuing to push for commonsensical law enforcement procedures and protocols to be implemented by ICE and CBP, such things as that we have with our law enforcement here in Monterey County. No mask, proper identification, the use of judicial warrants going into someone's house, not administrative warrants. I think one of the many things that led to the downfall of the former Secretary of DHS was the fact that in response to our good partner, Representative Lofgren's questioning on the Judiciary Committee, she basically said that there is United States Supreme Court case law that allows for administrative warrants to go into someone's house unannounced. And that is just not true. That is just not the law. That was a blatant lie, one of many lies that secretary told that I believe led to her downfall. But no, we want judicial warrants, make sure that's enforced. And then, of course, proper training amongst many other things that need to be done for ICE and CBP agents if they are going into our streets and going to be continuing to carry out this mass deportation policy that's gone well beyond targeting just felons and gang members. So obviously, that's something we are continuing to push for. And unfortunately, that's led to the shutdown of DHS at this point. I don't say just DHS. I say unfortunately because under DHS, as many of you know, especially Supervisor Kate Daniels, she knows well in her relationships that she's had with former secretaries of DHS, that DHS doesn't just have ICE and CBP, it also has FEMA, it also has TSA, and it also has the Cybersecurity Administration. And so those are continuing to operate because of the important role, but the people just aren't getting paid. And so that will continue to build up, obviously, and the pressure will continue to be put on all of us to make sure that DHS continues to do the right thing. Let me just quickly sum up a couple of other areas that we're working on. The offshore oil drilling threat by this administration. Everybody, not just Monterey County, but all counties along the coast of California have done an excellent job and continuing to make sure that this administration knows that we will continue to push back on them. The 2 public comment periods have closed. We found them very successful based on the comments that were submitted. But right now, the Bureau of Energy, Oceans and Energy Management, BOEM as it's called, they are reviewing those comments as they should. And then the next step is another 90-day comment period that we don't know what's going to start, but we will be continuing to watch and monitor BOEM to see what happens there when they announce that next 90-day comment period. So far, it appears this administration is playing by the process, which is a good thing because as we saw in Trump 1.0, the process, and thanks to all of the good work and words of all of you and the people of Monterey County, is slowing it down. And that's what we have to do, is to put up these hurdles and roadblocks when it comes to offshore oil drilling. Farm Bill, we saw the Ag Committee this week get through a 22-hour markup in the Farm Bill, which I'm proud. I had 2 major research bills in that Farm Bill. However, of those 22 hours, about 75% of it was on SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which was cut under the One Big Beautiful Bill. And there were a number of efforts to try to amend the Farm Bill to ensure that that's reinstated. Unfortunately, that failed. The Farm Bill passed out of the House in a bipartisan basis, and we'll see what happens if it gets to the floor based on the politics around that. When it comes to healthcare, I had an excellent discussion with Chair Askew in Washington, D.C. last week, I think it was, about basically, as John said, the effects of H.R. 1 on the locals. Obviously, the largest cut to Medicaid in our nation's history, which obviously transcends in the Medi-Cal and is going to affect us. We have over 67,000 people here in Monterey County alone on Medicaid. So there are going to be effects. We will continue to lay the foundation for legislation to reinstate those cuts and those programs under Medicaid so that obviously it doesn't affect the most vulnerable in our county. We will continue to do everything we can for the EPTCs, the tax credits, for the ACA, which 16,000 people rely on in Monterey County and are going to see their prices go up because of H.R. 1. And then when it comes to Medicare, I will continue to push forward my bipartisan bill, which makes sure that there is proper reimbursements and a proper reimbursement rate for our local physicians so that more people can have not just coverage, but access to doctors who unfortunately seem to be leaving the area because of these types of reimbursement rates. So those are the areas that we're going to continue to work on. A lot more work has to be done in that area federally. But in the meantime, we are looking to, like John said, to the state, possibly to the locals, counties, to make sure that they step up and try to do everything they can to protect the most vulnerable when it comes to healthcare. Affordable housing, obviously the number one issue for the area, making sure that I continue to use my purview on the Ways and Means Committee to adjust the tax code accordingly. More homes on the market bill, bipartisan bill to make sure that we double the capital gains tax exemption for home sales. A lot of people sitting on their homes these days, not selling because they know the penalties that they're going to pay if they sell their homes. We want to double the rates at this point so that they can get out there. First-time home buyers tax credit is important, something I want to reinstate, another bill of mine. And then, of course, a middle income families, middle workforce housing tax development credit to make sure that there's middle income housing. Look, I'm all for LIHTC, low income housing tax credit. Definitely, we actually increased those over these last couple of years. But there's a lot of people in the 19th Congressional District that work here and they make too much to qualify for low income housing. So we want some workforce housing incentivized through tax credits as well. So those are the big areas we're working on. Look forward to continuing to work with you and the partnership that we have. Know that things are crazy in Washington, D.C., as Wendy Chairwoman Askew experienced last week, but also it was good to see that not only are you coming out to Washington, D.C. and still have faith in Congress, in the institution. There are many members of Congress who continue to work together to try to get stuff done, try to continue to fight back against this administration in many areas that we talked about, but also so that we can feel the effects of Washington, D.C. and the federal investments here locally. So look forward to continuing our partnership, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Panetta, and thank you for your leadership and all those meaningful bills and efforts that you're leading in Washington and always being attentive to us here locally and also when we're visiting in Washington, D.C. So thank you for that. We're going to go back to our agenda to item number 5, just brief comments from our supervisors. I know we have 3 legislative offices still to hear from. We will go back to you, but I just want to give a chance to my colleagues to say some brief words, and perhaps we start at that end of the table with Supervisor Lopez, and we'll move this way. Brief comments.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'll be brief and just thank each one of these representatives so far that have shared their perspective on the initiatives that we've laid out, as well as sharing their own priorities for the year. I do appreciate the focus on communities like San Lucas and the partnerships that we've been able to undertake to get success. I know we often joke that would take an act of Congress or an act of God. Well, for San Lucas, they've gotten 2 acts of Congress. That's a beautiful thing. And the fact that there was language within Prop 4 itself for the community of San Lucas, not for communities like them, but for that community, means a great deal to folks who often feel unseen and overlooked. And that's because of the partnerships, the willingness to continue deep and meaningful conversations with partners that may not be traditional partners across the spectrum to bring solutions. So as we continue the work, I think the focus on housing, as Congressman Panetta was just talking about, the focus on infrastructure so that those communities who've met the goals of producing the housing, especially I'm thinking of Greenfield in this instance, without having to shoulder those heavy costs, it means a lot that the focus is there and that their issues have been raised to a level that they're understood. So I just appreciate everybody's willingness to continue to collaborate and move forward the issues that matter on the ground here at home. And I look forward to continuing to be a partner, communicating in all methods necessary to make sure progress is as clean and simple for our residents who don't really care who it is. They just care that progress comes to the ground. So thank you.
Supervisor Church.
Thank you. I want to echo a lot of these same thoughts Supervisor Lopez gave. And, you know, we make decisions locally here, but it does take a partnership with our state and federal partners as well to really move forward, and particularly on infrastructure projects as they go about, whether it be roads or whether it be San Lucas or the dams or scenic road, and doing this kind of work, because these are big dollar projects, and the bigger pocket is there at California, the state and the federal government. So it's really important for us to really nurture these projects and to nurture these relationships as we go forward. But I'm going to kind of focus a little bit here on these underserved communities that are historically underserved, and the impact that a few dollars can make. And we've had some reference to the $20 million that Senator Laird, Speaker Rivas were able to bring into the community of Pajaro, and that really made a difference. And that just shows you how you can really be impactful at the personal level and not just beyond infrastructure, but in providing service, providing opportunities for people to be able to express what they want and make decisions within their own community. But there are other communities like that around too. And I think what's particularly neglected and what would really be great to try to get some more resources for are these urbanized, unincorporated communities. They can range from Chular or San Lucas to Carmel Village, to communities out in my district, such as Baranda or Bolsonoles or Los Lomas or Aromas or Pajaro or Castroville, which lack street lights or even sidewalks, which always amazes me just how expensive sidewalks are to build. But these are things which in these urbanized, unincorporated communities we have to find the answers for, and that's where we need the partnership for. So I'm going to, so the benefit of time, I'm going to stop it there and pass it over to the next supervisor.
Ask you.
Thank you. I just want to thank you all for spending time with us today. This is a great opportunity to come together. And I think some of the comments that were made, I want to thank those who've already spoken for recognizing the harm that's being caused by the inhumane acts of immigration enforcement across the nation. Although we've not experienced the worst of this activity, we do ask for your support to ensure that we're prepared to respond and keep our neighbors safe when that time comes. I want to thank everyone who's spoken also for acknowledging the devastating impacts of HR 1 on our healthcare systems and on all of our residents, because it will affect everybody. I do serve on the Central California Alliance for Health with our Director of Health, and we are anticipating that 28% of our members will lose coverage. That's dollars directly into our healthcare system that meet the needs of every resident here. We ask for your understanding and recognition that Monterey County continues to report dramatically higher rates of student homelessness than anywhere else on the Central Coast or the entire Bay Area region. Over half of our renters spend more than 30% of their income on rent. This is untenable. We are building housing in District 4. I can speak directly to the affordable housing that we're building and market rate housing, but we need your help at the state and federal level to protect housing as shelter for people and to eliminate incentives that allow it to be used as a vehicle for corporate investment. We have roughly over 10,000 vacant homes in Monterey County and many homes that are used as commercial and commercially owned investment vehicles, and those are not housing that are available for people to live in, people who live and work here in our community. We invite you to join us and continue to join us and support us in protecting safe, managed outdoor recreation. We have quite a bit of that in District 4 with the new park that's being built, State Park on the beach, and with the Fort Ord National Monument. We see over 1 million visitors to the Fort Ord National Monument every year, and we do need western access with trailheads that have toilets and parking that's safe for children and dogs and people to get in and out of their cars. So that's an ask that we're working on. And finally, I want to thank everyone who's spoken and all of the support that we've had in the fierce opposition to attempts to open our shores to gas and oil leases. The proactive communication that we've had with our federal partners has been incredible, helping us make sure that our comments are delivered on deadlines, and we hope that that partnership can continue. So just a few things I wanted to highlight, but really, really appreciate the time that you've spent with us today and the ongoing partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Supervisor Daniels.
I want to thank Representative Lofgren and Senator Schiff's staff for being here still. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad that every single legislator that was here got to hear the presentation. That's the most important part of this meeting. And so everybody had that benefit of hearing about the impacts of HR 1, hearing about some of these large infrastructure projects, and also just hearing about the condition of our roads. And these are all sort of insurmountable challenges we have funding-wise. And so thank you for the presentations that everyone gave to all the legislators, but a special shout out to the two of you for being here still. Once a staffer, always a staffer. So I am sitting here as the vice chair of the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, but I've been staffing John the entire time because I can't not staff John. So that's my former boss. So anyway, it's great to be here. And I'm just going to take a moment to talk about one particular project that you had because it's in District 5. Certainly not of the 3 projects you heard about today, the most important, if you were to rate the importance in terms of communities impacted. But the scenic road protective structure, the road is called Scenic Road. We've clarified that. We're not trying to protect a view. It's a road that's called Scenic Road, but it protects a state park that 80,000 people visit every single year. It's often referred to as the 18th mile of the 17-mile drive because it's free. And what happens because of the vulnerability of this project and because of the ecological sensitivity of the site is when the river looks like it's going to breach naturally to the north, we have public works staff literally with buckets trying to redirect the river and move it in a different direction. That means they're not in Baranda. That means they're not in Pajaro. It means they're not in other parts of the county if they're on this beach. And so what this project is trying to do is just redirect, let it breach naturally without people intervening, meanwhile protecting the bluff because we've got sewer on the bluff, we've got other communications infrastructure, there are homes, but the most important is we would lose all the infrastructure also at the state park, and people would not be able to access the beach. And so we're trying to accomplish with this $8 million ask one particular priority, which is stop spending the money as a county and, more importantly, our resources by just letting a river breach naturally to the north. And to do that, it needs some reinforcement. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you to Nicole Hollingsworth for pulling this off, your very first ledge workshop that you've done with our tremendous legislative delegation that we have representing us. We're in the best hands here in Monterey County with the people who represent us, and I hope they all know just how much we appreciate them and appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Daniels. And before we go back to our legislative offices, I wanted to take a moment just to recognize Gonzales City Council Member Liz Silva. Thank you for being here and for being a partner with us also. And we supported, this board has unanimously supported important projects like contributing to the Caprara Center, the new county library in Gonzales, because we know how critical that is for the youth and families of your community. And another example of the partnerships that we do with our other cities here in our county. I also wanted to thank Nicole Hollingsworth for this meeting, her hard work, very well done. But also thank Maria Triplar, our federal lobbyist from Ballard Spar. She came here on Wednesday, and it was important for her to be here in person, for the community to see here that our advocates for Monterey County, for the people, the business in D.C., trek across the country to come be here in person. I think that shows respect and how committed they are to this to our county and to our communities. And she went to visit Supervisor Glenn Church and I, arranged a tour to visit Pajaro, the levee, Pajaro Park, the renovations at Pajaro Library. It's one thing to hear about it or read a report about it, but when you're there seeing it in person, it really makes a tremendous difference. And she also visited the Central Coast Veterans Cemetery and some other key places in our community. Thank you for doing that. And also Ashley Walker is our Sacramento advocate and lobbyist. And I want to thank her for being here online. But why this is important is that we have great representatives, as we heard from them, but sometimes the additional follow-up work, we require advocates and lobbyists to be able to go and work with our legislators to make sure all the pieces are all aligned to get things across the finish line, get the resources to our local communities. A lot of times, everyday average working people and business don't have the money to hire lobbyists to represent them in Sacramento or D.C., but our county prioritizes that in a significant way, and I think that's where we're able to get a lot of good things done for our communities. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I won't mention everything because we had a City of Salinas legislative meeting earlier this morning, and everybody already heard what I had to say. I did bring up the soccer complex. I did bring up Salinas Rail and the Salinas Rail Station because we have to plan for that if the stars are going to align, hopefully not too far down the road, for increased passenger rail. But one thing I did want to bring up that was different is just in alignment with all the concerns around immigration, right? Because it had a lot of impacts in our community. A year ago, we were having the largest town halls Monterey County has ever had. Our largest ever was at Alisal High with over 800 residents at an immigration rights workshop. And we had 20,000 views of that hearing just in the first 2 weeks alone. It really showed that was an issue front of mind for thousands of local families, but also many businesses who rely on immigrant labor, whether it's our ag industry or it's hospitality. And just one idea that surfaced for our speaker was just, this idea came from Clínica del Valle de Salud del Valle de Salinas, was just to having a select committee that could review all the data, what has transpired since these immigration enforcements have taken place in California, to tell the legislature and the public how our state has been impacted, who has been impacted, immigrants and citizens alike in our state, data on how many arrests, how many unlawful detentions, mistaken identity, racial profiling. And this has been litigated in court. The raids that took place in Kern County and Bakersfield, the federal court found there was racial profiling. They ordered CBP, the California Border Patrol, to engage in training against racial profiling. And 77 of 78 immigrants that were arrested January of last year had no criminal records whatsoever. So it wasn't going after the people who had serious concerns or safety concerns. These were just hardworking people trying to provide for their families and contribute to their local communities in California's economy. So, and also, what has been the economic impact to California overall? I think we need to have like our state taking lead in giving us that information, so we know that as we move forward, how do these types of mass scale enforcements do impact local communities, the state of California, and our nation. So that was the only new thing I would add from my top priorities, I think, that are needed in the coming year. So now we're going to go back to our remaining legislative offices. We're really honored to have Kathy Mahan. She's the Central Coast Regional Director for U.S. Senator Adam Schiff, and we were very glad to meet with him and representatives of counties of all across California just a few days ago when we were in Washington, D.C. So we'll pass it to you.
Great, thank you. I'm excited to be here today, and just want to give a few updates from the Senator's office. First, I would just like to say that the Senator's one of his, top, or if not main priority, is really just fighting for California, delivering back to California. And to that, he was able to secure $254 million in federal investments through our appropriations process. That included $54.8 million for the Pajaro flood project, yes, and another $2 million for the city of Salinas' fire department. We are in the process of fiscal year 27 taking applications. I'm pretty sure I've been working with your team to go through that process, so we know that there will be more asks for these infrastructure investment projects going forward. So I look forward to working with all of you on trying to get some of those through the process in the coming year. Hearing from all of you, we're very aware of the impacts on the rollbacks of federal funding and how that is impacting our local communities. Senator's been very active in pushing back on those, requesting information to justify it, to advocate on behalf of local communities, to reverse those decisions or get the money back in that is owed to the communities. He is, also pushing, knowing Monterey County has so much agriculture interest, he's also been pushing very much for specialty crops to get more of the share of mitigation dollars coming from the impacts on tariffs, and just overall trying to push for California crops and workers and just programs to benefit California more, because it's been a little skewed over the years with his role on the Agriculture Committee. On the immigration side, the Senator's been very, very concerned, pushing back on the actions and the immigration policies. He, as Representative Panetta said, the Senator is also not supporting any additional funding for DHS and wants to see significant reforms in those actions. He's also just been doing oversight on the funding and how additional funding is being used in the immigration, in the policies of DHS. So was very concerned about HR 1 and the impacts on hospitals. He was able to secure some additional funding, or not additional funding, but some reforms to allow for some rural hospitals to, not potentially not close. That's an ongoing effort, and it's something we're going to have to just keep really working at. But I look forward to working with all of you to kind of really understand the impacts on the ground and how we can be trying to be helpful in those areas. So anyway, I think I'll leave it at that. I mean, there's so much we could go over. The senator's really just been pushing back on the, also on the war powers, trying to make sure Congress has its, say in these decisions, and is continuing to fight for democracy. So it's a very busy time in Washington. But I just wanted to also say that I am based out of the city of Fresno in our Central California office, but happy to come to Monterey anytime. Senator was in Monterey County in January and spoke at the Eco Farms conference, and was able to do a couple other visits in the community and meet with several people. So was really excited to be here, and look forward to working with you going forward and continuing to be good partners with all of you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mahan, for being here. And also one request that we had, and we were talking to Dr. Strudley yesterday from the Pajaro Regional Flood Management Agency. We're very grateful for the $54 million that Senator Padilla and Senator Schiff acquired new money for the project. That's significant, but we're hoping to do some kind of press event to hopefully in the summer when the scheduling is right, to be able to thank them and recognize them for their leadership on that. And I think we might be finishing one phase of the project, so it might align for two things to highlight at some visits. So that was a request that Supervisor Church and I and Dr. Strudley were talking about, hopefully to arrange with your office. Do we have a representative from Senator Padilla's office after all, Nicole? Margaret is not here with us, so then we'll go. Last but not least, we want to really thank Congressmember Zoe Lofgren. She represents the 18th district, but she is the chair of the California delegation, a very powerful position, but also a champion on immigration, the Pajaro levy issues as well, and many other things. So we want to pass the mic to Angela Bocanegra and thank her for always being here, accessible to us.
Thank you. I just want to take this time to thank all of the members here on the Board of Supervisors and leadership on behalf of Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. She would have liked to have been here, and as you've heard from Representative Panetta, it's been a busy week in D.C. She's on her way back. So just to let you know, she just wants to say thank you during these challenging times. She just wants to know that she is here, available. You guys are able to reach her if you have any issues. And she wants to make sure, again, that I reiterate every time, Community Funding Project is available. We have several deadlines. One is March 8th, which is this Sunday. We have also March 15th. So we just want to make sure that that is put out there, because this is another way that we can bring funding to our communities. So when everybody is speaking about the different issues that affect the county, the Congresswoman is aware of it. And as you know, as you mentioned, Supervisor Alejo, she's been a strong champion for immigration for the last 30 years. And one of the things that she has just put into the House with Member Raskin is the Real Courts Rule of Law Act of 2026, moving the nation's immigration court system to an independent judiciary system. This will then allow for just hearings on immigration, which is important. And a lot of the stuff that Rep. Panetta had also mentioned, she has voted no on any further DHS funding at this time. And her main concerns are also with the Trump administration and their military action on Iran. She is not happy that they did this without congressional approval. And she also supports the War Powers Resolution. And as you know, the Congresswoman has been, effective bringing money here to our county. She wants to continue. That is her main focus, is making sure that those that are the most vulnerable are receiving the services that they need. She's meeting with elected officials. She's meeting with, the local food banks. She's reaching out to the healthcare systems to make sure that everybody's voice is being heard, because she feels it's important that everybody have basic access to housing, health services, and food. But other than that, she continues to be here as a partner and to work with all of you. She's very proud of the work you've all have done, because these partnerships are making a difference, and she continues to fund those programs that actually help our community in ways that people do not see. A lot of people say you funded a soccer field, but yes, that soccer field has a lot of meaning, and it gives hope to our youth. When you speak to them, when they have somewhere to go and they have something to do, they're not on the streets, they're actually involved in the community. They have a sense of belonging and community. So those projects are important to her. So thank you, Supervisor Alejo, for also championing for that soccer field. A lot of people may say that's not good use of money, but it is in the long run. And many would say with the services cut, that is important. So continue the work that you all are doing here. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bocanegra. That wraps up all our legislative office comments. This is a public hearing, so we also have some time for our comments from the public. So we'll give a couple minutes, and thank you for waiting patiently through this extensive meeting, but we look forward to hearing from you.
Good afternoon, Jose Guerra, Monterey community. First, I want to say, let's talk about transparency. Let's start with that now, because apparently we have not had very good transparent supervisors. I want to say people up here. We've had a lot of issues in our community and we've not been reported back to. Mr. Alejo, I've contacted you several times, emailed you, sent you video stuff on things we need to get done, things we need to talk about. You don't get back to me. And I don't know why. You're a paid public servant. You should be able to at least reach out to somebody. That's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing is, a lot of you guys up here are up for re-election. So remember who voted you in. Remember that the public, taxpayers, are the people that vote you guys in. Somehow you guys get into power and you forget that. You forget who you're here to represent. I'm looking at all of you. You can shake your head. You all can shake your head. I don't care. I'm just being upfront with you. You need to help the public. You need to do things. I mean, the things with the water in by King City, that's ridiculous. We haven't solved that over 20 years. That is really ridiculous that we have not done that. Things like that take forever, that we do, just cost more money because we don't do it efficiently. You have all these engineers in the city and the county and public works and everywhere else, and you can't get nothing done on time. Why? It only costs us more money. You know that, right? A $5 million project turns into 10 after 5, 6, 7 years. You're into $10 million because we don't do things right in the city and the county. You guys work together. Please represent the people that voted for you. Please be transparent. Thank you all. God bless you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Liz Silva, thank you for waiting.
Thank you. And thank you to the Board of Supervisors for having this event today. I'm able to attend on behalf of Gonzales. My name is Liz Silva. I'm the current Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Gonzales. I'm born here in Salinas and raised in the Valley, so I'm a proud homegirl. I want to first thank the elected officials for always being supportive of our projects in Gonzales. We had a state investment to our Teen Innovation Center at the Caprera Community Complex. We also had very good support from the Board of Supervisors for the library that is now housed there. They're beautiful. It's a beautiful facility, so I invite everybody to come and enjoy it. Right now, our city is like many cities. We need housing. I think it has been discussed today by various officials. We are ready. We have, our RHNA numbers are about 1,260 by the year 2031, which is only 5 years away. We can't meet that until the land is annexed to our city. I would hope that we have your support for LAFCO to approve our last application, which was submitted about 10 days ago. And I'm hoping that we can provide the housing necessary at the various levels for our community within the valley. We've been waiting over 20 years. The developer has not left our side. So the land is to the east of our last development, which was done a little over 20 years ago. I hope we get your support for that. And with regards to housing, our current situation in Gonzales, as in other cities, ADUs are approved units on properties. There's currently 2 ADUs going into a neighbor's yard behind my, everybody says not in my backyard, but it actually basically is in my backyard. My concern is not with the ADUs, but is that my time? I'm
You
sorry.
can just wrap it up.
Just the additional parking congestion it can bring without parking for the ADUs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments today. Next person. Thank you for waiting as well.
Hi, thank you so much. And I'm Kendra Howell. I'm Director of Government Affairs for Salinas Valley Health and also a proud resident of Salinas. So thank you for this event. It's been really informative, and thank you for the attention to healthcare. We feel heard when we're contacting all of you at the various levels, and I believe our partners in the community do as well. So it's a complicated time, so thank you for always listening and being an ear. I wanted to say a couple thank yous. First of all, thank you to the county and the staff. You know the work that we've done through the Blue Zones Project and now Live Well. I have been proud to work with so many individuals through the county, primarily the health department and also facilities and parks, and they work really hard, and it's just been a pleasure to work with them. So thank you to the county and your staff. And I also wanted to thank all of your various staffs, and that's not only from the federal, the state, the county, but also the local level, including Gonzales. When we reach out to your offices, your staff is phenomenally responsive. We appreciate all that work. It is not easy work, and it's just been really great to work with you, and I just really wanted to take the time to say that today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? We'll go to those online, if there is any.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, just to Mr. Guerra, you called me the other day. I got your message. I just want to say that it was about the Vanguard Farm Worker Housing Project. You have called me, and we have spoken dozens of times about the same concerns you have about that. But I just want to acknowledge that we did get your message and about the issue that you have raised with me repeatedly. So with that, I think we're going to wrap that up, and I'll pass it back to Madam Chair just to make any closing comments to end this meeting.
Great. And I'll just again say thank you for being here with us. And thank you to everyone in the community that weighs in and allows us to be your voice with our state and federal partners. We appreciate the feedback and we appreciate knowing where the needs are so that we can make sure we're raising those to our colleagues at all levels of government and to our our legislative team. I couldn't be prouder of the legislative efforts that we have, the team that we have in place, and the legislative platform that the county continues to update on a regular basis. I think it lays out some positions very clearly so that our folks and our team knows where we stand on issues. So thank you all for joining us today. And with that, I don't think there's any board direction to staff that came from our comments, so we will move to adjournment. It is 1 o'clock. We're 30 minutes late. I think we did all right considering our late start. Yeah, we'll be back here again for our next board meeting, which I think is next week. Thank you.